Very good afternoon. Welcome to Les Sables d'Olonne on the west coast of France. It's 13:30 here local time, 12:30 UTC at home in London. And we're joining today from lockdown London, none other than Tracy Edwards. Tracy, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Excellent. So for those who maybe don't know, Tracy put together the Maiden project way back in 1989, the first all-female crew to compete in the Whitbread race, and what a legacy that project has left. Then 20 years ago just now, she put together the Royal and Sun Alliance attempt to go for the Jules Verne record, and again, two of her alumni, if you like, are racing on this race, Sam Davies and Miranda, and I hope that we have Miranda with us. Indeed. Hello, Miranda.
Yeah. Hello, Andy.
How are you? We have a very special guest for you, Miranda.
Fine. And, I'm sorry?
I said I have a very special guest for you for crossing the equator. We have Tracy Edwards for you.
All right. Oh. Hello? I've lost you. We'll try again.
No, we're good, I think. We can hear you loud and clear, Miranda. Listen, Tracy, I think we just have a slight connection issue. We will get back to Miranda. But tell us your thoughts on Miranda and her race. I say she was one of your crew on board the Royal Sun Alliance. You must be incredibly proud to see these sailors doing this.
Well, I mean, it's amazing to see 6 women in the race. That's absolutely fantastic. I'm so proud of Sam and Miranda. It's just so amazing to me that they're out there doing this. You know, I mean, I love sailing, but I couldn't do what they're doing. I couldn't do this single-handed stuff. I need a team around me.
Let's try and get Miranda back then. Miranda, we've got Tracy Edwards for you.
I can hear her. Hi, Tracy. How lovely to hear your voice.
Hi.
I can't hear you now. Oh, no.
Can you hear me now, Miranda?
Yeah. How's life? How's life in lockdown world?
Pretty much like life is there, but without the bumps and the salt water.
It's freedom out here. It's lovely.
Yeah, no,
Anyway.
It must be fantastic.
Yeah, so just over 22 years ago. Just over 22 years ago, I did my first equator crossing on Royal Sun Alliance. I well remember it. The freeze-dried slops that have been carefully saved for days.
God, can you believe that's 22 years ago? I can remember it as clearly as if it was yesterday, throwing all that vile smelling stuff all over you.
I had a slightly more civilized crossing in the middle of the night. I offered some not very good quality wine, but wine nevertheless, to Neptune to hopefully be granted safe passage for the next, I don't know how many thousands of miles.
Brilliant.
Anyway, but that was the start of a long career.
Well, actually, Miranda, I seem to remember you saying to me 24 years ago, I'm just going to do this one thing, this sail around the world, get it out of my system, and then I'm going to go back to advertising. I think that's what you said. And 24 years later, here you are.
Yeah,
so what happened?
We were doing pretty well on our Jules Verne trophy attempt. So Royal Alliance, and we just mastered, so we never quite completed it, and therefore, well, let me see. I had to just carry on.
Well, you're doing an absolutely fantastic job, Miranda. We're all so proud of you. The whole Maiden team is following you and Sam and all of the Maiden supporters, and we're just blown away by what you've done. I mean, just as we know, even getting to the start line is phenomenally hard, but what you're doing is, I take my hat off to you. It's just outstanding.
Thank you. That was so kind of you. Well, I mean, it is all your fault, really, all those years ago. But anyway, I'm really enjoying myself, despite the fact that the race has been pretty hard, especially for our group so far. But anyway, I'll try and make you all proud. Anyway, I'll try and make it.
Miranda?
Yeah, I'm sure you will. You have done already. How's the boat doing?
Oh, she's doing all right. She's in pretty good condition. Alvaro did a really good job of preparing her. You know, the aim was to have a reliable boat where everything works, and that has been mostly the case. A couple of autopilots. One of the autopilots is in a bad mood today. So, but anyway, hopefully it will resurrect itself without me having to delve into why, because that is really my weak point.
Miranda, do you still have your stowaway with you, the bird?
No, it was a storm petrel. Just came to have a rest, and then I had another one a couple of days ago. Same ilk, but not exactly the same. Didn't have quite the same feathers. He also turned up for a 12-hour rest. Arrived in the middle of a squall in the middle of the night, absolutely soaked and exhausted, and just kipped for about 12 hours, and then flew away. They're birds that live at sea for months on end anyway, so that's kind of nice.
A bit like yourself.
I've also had dragonflies, a butterfly. Yeah, unlike me. Yeah, we're not sea animals, us.
Exactly. Now listen, I've got a question from Phil Tate from the internet. He's asking you, how do you remotivate yourself, or when you're not feeling strong or something is broken on the boat, how do you remotivate yourself or keep yourself motivated when you get a little bit down?
Have a cup of tea. Unfortunately, with my advanced age, I don't actually get down very often. I've been in a pretty good mood since the start, which is quite amazing considering what an absolute assault course it's been, especially for our part of the fleet. But yeah, cup of tea, good mental, ticking off. We are pretty lucky to be out here. You know, there's no masks, no social distancing. Well, I suppose there is in kind of the absolute sense. And the freedom. Nobody tells me what to do here. The ocean, and the oceans are the last place on Earth where man has not managed to apply, laws and what you're allowed to do and what you're not. Yes, we have maritime laws which we all know and respect, but and which makes sense. But it is the last place of absolute freedom on Earth, I think.
Meantime, Miranda, you're having a good little race with Alexia, whose birthday it is.
Oh, is it? I'll send her a message. I can know that. Happy birthday, Alexia. Yes. So it depends who kind of gets parked under a squall when, as to who moves forward or not. But yeah, I need to have another look at the weather and decide whether I can diverge a bit, because go faster.
Good.
And but anyway, yeah, we're having a really good race. It's great.
Good. Now listen, Miranda, great to speak with you, and lovely to see you connecting with Tracy. We'll speak with you in another few days. Thanks, Miranda.
Yeah, thanks, and thanks for getting Tracy on. That was brilliant. Anyway, love to everyone. Talk to you soon.
So that is Miranda Merrin on Compagnie de France. Tracy, what was Miranda like 20 years ago on the Royal and Sun Alliance? Was she an outstanding sailor looking to broad horizons, or was she pretty much, as you said, ready to go back into advertising?
Well, Miranda was, I guess, a bit of a strange choice for us. She, we weren't really, all of us, really the best sailors on a multi-hull at that time. I mean, it was the first time for any of us on a multi-hull. But Miranda's enthusiasm, just this overwhelming optimism, and her mind state, it was just so attractive to me. And you link that to her very practical, logical mind. She's got this really extraordinary thought process, where you actually see her working things out, and she wants to know, why does that work like that, and how does this happen, and why does that happen from that? And I mean, just an extraordinary brain. And then, of course, when we all got out sailing, I mean, she was just a hugely valuable member of the team. And I mean, that again it was a great team. We all got on really well. We were all learning at the same time. You know, we were pretty much the first, I think, British team to sail sort of a multi-hull of that size, and the first all-female crew to try the Jules Verne. So we had nothing to go by. We were just making it up as we went along, really.
What was it, I mean, going back to the Maiden thing, what was it that drove you in the first place? Was it just about being able to get into the race, or did you feel like you wanted to pioneer new tracks for women in sailing?
Well, I did the 85-86 race on Atlantic Privateer as the cook, and 9 months with 17 men made me think, I really want to do the race again, but probably not like that. And I'm a good navigator, and I was then. And to be forced into being a cook because I was a girl was just so galling. And I realised that I was never going to be allowed to navigate on a bloke's boat. So I thought, I mean, it wasn't really a great feminist statement to start off with. It was about me wanting to navigate, and that's why I created this world around me that I could be the navigator in my own team. And it wasn't really until a few months into it, and then when we got into the race, that I realised that, wow, this is a lot worse than I thought. The sexism, the misogyny, and so yeah, we did end up very much battling for the rights of women to be allowed to get out there and do the sailing.
I mean, when I see some of the headlines looking back, it's extraordinary. Some of the media you had at that time that was so abusive almost.
Well, our favourite was always Bob Fisher, who coined the phrase, "They're just a tin full of tarts," which I have to say we didn't really take that much offence to. But then when we sailed into New Zealand, having won our second leg, Bob Fisher very kindly wrote in Yachts and Yachting, not just a tin full of tarts, a tin full of smart, fast tarts, which is much better, obviously.
Absolutely. Now listen, we're just going to look at the rankings just now at midday. We'll come back to you in just a few seconds, Tracy. But on top still, Charlie Dallin is leading now by over 100 miles from Thomas Rion. Jean Le Cam is at 345 miles, so Dallin moving ever clearer. Good news to see that Boris Herrmann, the German sailor on Sea Explorer Yacht Club de Monaco, is theoretically up to fourth place, but he's at 520.3 miles behind the leader. And Kevin Escoffier, look at that, he's 520.8 miles behind, so neck and neck. Yannick Besthaven is only 3 miles behind Boris, so these boats are really, really close in terms of distance behind the leader. Then Sebastian Simon in 7th, Louis Burton is in 8th, and look at this one as well. Louis Burton is on 672.5 miles behind the leader, Sam Davies 672.7 miles behind the leader, and Alex Thompson back, as he said, the boss is back. He's at 678, so he's only 6 miles behind Sam Davies on the midday rankings. Running down the rankings, 13th, Giancarlo Pedotti. There's only 13 miles between Giancarlo and 11th place Damien Seguin. So overall, the race is hotting up all the time in the South Atlantic. Looking down a little bit further, Isabel Josh in 15th. She's been very quick. 348 miles over 24 hours. That's the best of the top 20. Alan Rura also going well in 18th, the Swiss skipper. He did 316 miles in 24 hours. And then on the next page, actually the quickest boat in the fleet has been Arnaud Boissier, who's done 357 miles over the 24 hours until midday. Miranda Marin, who we just spoke to, is in 27th. She is a few miles now ahead of Ari Husela, Kojiro Shiraishi in 31st, and Jeremy Bayu in 32nd, who is just catching Koji progressively, still about 400 miles behind. So let's go back to Tracy Edwards and talk to us a little bit about Sam Davies, because as I say, she attributes her ocean racing career to you.
Well, Sam was, another great choice. It's interesting, people say to me...
She was 23 though, wasn't she, when she joined you?
She was one of the nippers. We had 2 nippers on the boat, her and Emma Richards, who also then sailed around the world single-handed. So, people say to me, oh, you must be a great sailor. And I'm like, I'm really not, actually. But I pick great teams, Someone once told me, if you're picking a team, make sure you're the biggest idiot in the room, that everyone else... I always make sure that I do that. And Sam was one of those people, again, it was so engaging when I first met her. I mean, she was so young, as was Emma, but the two of them, I mean, they told me they had to be on the boat. And I knew her sailing experience was really spot on. And then, you know, again, the first time we went out sailing with her, I was actually a little bit of a fit of jealousy, because I'm not a natural sailor. I have to work quite hard at it. But Sam is a natural. You know, watching her is like watching a ballet. You know, she's just instinctive, knows what to do, how to do it. You know, and one of the most amazing memories I have of Sam is in the Southern Ocean on Royal Sun Alliance, where we lost our instruments. And, you know, doing 20 knots, 22, 23, 24 knots in those boats in the dark in the Southern Ocean, you do not want to lose your instruments. But, you know, we thought, well, we can make it till the dawn, we hope. And Sam said, no, I'll go up the mast, and, you know, because she was our rigger, and I'll go up and fix the instruments. And by the time she got back down, she was bruised. The inside of her legs were bruised from hanging onto the mast. I mean, she was thrown around all over the place, but just a phenomenal sailor.
And going incredibly well. I don't know if you've looked at the rankings and the position reports today. She's really had a really great trajectory around the west side of the high in the best pressure, and she looks like she might catch up.
I mean, this is, again, you know, this shows what women can do when they've got the right sponsor, the right boat, you know, that they've got the right team and the time and everything else. And, you know, it's really proof of the pudding of, as I say, what women can do.
Indeed. Tracy, I'll come back to you in just a second. We must now look at our 3D animation, our fly through the fleet as the fleet stands just now. And we're looking first of all at the back of the fleet, still in the Atlantic, the North Atlantic. We have Jeremy Biyu and Kojiro Shiraishi. Then coming into the Alexia Barry group, just crossing the equator. Further down Armel Chipon, closest to the Brazilian coast, going quite well on L'Occitan. Then flying down through into the South Atlantic. There we see Isabel Joschka, who I say has been very quick and catching up in the group in front. Damien Sagan, Benjamin Dutreux, all side by side in the west of the high, going quite well. And then Alex Thompson, as I say, the boss is back and going well in Hugo Boss. Sam Davies and Louis Burton then coming round the west side of the high in great wind pressure and looking like they'll make up some gains. And then Kevin Escoffi and Boris Herman just behind him. Kevin Escoffi, who was just on a little bit of a dilemma yesterday, whether to come south or not. And Jean Le Cam still up in the north and east, finding it quite tricky up there. Upwind at times and very fluky breezes, and then flying down to slowed still is Thomas Ruyong in second, and Charlie Dallin finding it pretty tough at the front, testing his patience in these very fickle breezes and unpleasant conditions. And just in the background you see Tristan da Cunha, the islands which are the only or the most remote inhabited islands in the world. We'll look also at the meteo, the weather situation just now, focusing particularly on the front of the fleet. Well, the weather today, we're looking first of all at the front of the fleet primarily. It's all about the exit out of this high pressure system for Charlie Dallin, the leader. It's looking just a little bit better for him, but it's been much more complicated than he expected, and indeed we expected a few days ago. We can see him just now down here. He's just at coming towards the bottom southeast corner of the high, and he's starting to get out a little bit, and that will evolve for him. Looking back up the track, we see Jean Le Cam still up on the northeast corner, the north side of the high. You can see it's evolved very slightly. And the key thing to watch, or we are watching really, Sam Davies and Louis Burton over here. Now they really have a beautiful trajectory down the west side and into the this little low pressure which we're watching here. They've also got good breeze just now anyway, so that looks to be quite a nice move for them. Meantime, Kevin Escoffi, well, he was just a little bit later. Remember he said yesterday he was in a bit of a dilemma. He couldn't decide whether to follow Jean Le Cam or to jibe south. He did jibe south, and in actual fact his angle, he's pretty much pointing southwesterly, trying to get round to the breeze or the better breeze on the west side of the high. And meantime, these guys over here, if I could just bring them a little bit closer, they're having a nice run down here in the easterly trades coming down, and it's relatively straightforward for them. Jean Le Cam, as I say, quite complicated for him. So let's look at the routing then. This is for the forecast for tomorrow at 6 o'clock in the evening. So we can see that Charlie Dallin has got out of the worst of it. Now he comes down. He ends up quite close to the ice gate, to the ice barrier which runs along here, and he's going to end up jibing along the barrier. And as I say, we're watching this low pressure here in the situation for Maitrecock, Buro Valley. Sam Davies we haven't actually routed, but she will be about here, and they will catch the front edge of this, either the front edge of this low pressure as it comes, or this high pressure is actually moving quite fast anyway, so they're really in for quite an optimum situation, and will probably close a few miles on Pivia. Not too dissimilar a situation for Thomas Rion, although he has lost some miles to Charlie Dallin. So then let's look at the animation. And we just watch, see, just watching Charlie Dallin coming out here, getting out of the high pressure. And as I say, at the back there, you can see Sam Davies and Maitrecock coming round. And as I said, Charlie coming right down to the ice barrier, the exclusion zone. And he's going to be jibing up here towards the Cape of Good Hope. And this is really an optimum situation for these two here, which is, say, Louis Burton and Sam. And just watching as this low revolves here. So looking good, I think, particularly for Sam Davies at the moment. Also, Alex Thompson going quite well, but Charlie Dallin should get out of the light breezes and finally into the low pressure zone and heading east pretty quickly.
East-west.
East-west, one of the two. Anyway, Tracy Edwards, I mean, you look at that, you see an ice gate. I mean, the whole of ocean racing has changed since the days of Maiden. I mean, we've got WhatsApp.
Yeah, it's all very different. It's so amazing speaking to Miranda on the boat. That's the first time I've ever done that because, of course, even though we were only 22 years ago with Royal Sun Alliance, you know, we still had to go through this convoluted uploading system to planes and helicopters, and it was just crazy. And on Maiden, we had nothing. But it's so amazing, isn't it? It's so wonderful to follow the fleet, and you feel like you're part of it, and you almost feel as if you know what they're going through, and being able to watch, you know, the graphs that you put up and everything else. It's just extraordinary.
Tell us a little bit about your work then with the Maiden Factor. You know, this is keeping the legacy and the drive forwards all the time.
Yeah, so we rescued, I had to sell Maiden at the end of the race. I mean, we never had any money ever. So we sold her, and then we rescued her 5 years ago, and we restored her to her former glory. She was in an absolutely terrible state, and we, you know, really didn't want to put her in a museum or do a sailing school. We wanted her to do for others what she'd done for us, which was to change people's lives and to really show girls, you know, that they can do anything they put their minds to. You know, she's living proof of that. So we, in November 2018, started a 3-year world tour to raise funds and awareness for girls' education, particularly the promotion of STEM subjects, which of course allows girls to do jobs like navigator, engineer, you know, all of these other marine industry jobs. And obviously, unfortunately, we were sort of stopped in our tracks in March, the same as every other human on the planet. So Maiden is now sitting in Hamburg, wondering what's going on, waiting to start again, and we'll be starting our next world tour, hopefully, you know, vaccines and everything willing, in April next year.
Well, here's hoping that happens. But I mean, doing great work. I mean, you would like to think that possibly you might inspire a young Vendée Globe sailor coming out from the Maiden Factor project.
I really hope so. You know, it's not just girls' education that we focus on. On every leg that we do, we take to what we call mile builders, and these are usually young women who want to get some miles under their belt. You know, we've had some extraordinary skippers on Maiden. We have guest skippers, so we've had the amazing Nikki Henderson, we had the awesome Wendy Tuck, and the incredible Liz Wardley. And these young women get to sail on Maiden with the extraordinary crew. You know, we have 5 sort of younger versions of us on the boat, less grey, less creaky, much more qualified than we were at their age, which is the age we were then. And they get mentored, and we hope that, you know, we play some small part in helping them, you know, sort of get onto the big boat racing scene. And also we kind of follow on from the Magenta project, the Magenta project, which is such a fantastic organization, do the mentoring and the teaching, and then we've taken a couple of their mentees on Maiden, and then we hope that there's, the next part of the process is them getting on the big race boats.
Good, fantastic work, Tracy. Keep it up. And hopefully you'll join us at some point through the race once again, but real privilege to speak with you.
Thanks so much. It's been an absolute pleasure to be here.
Thank you, Tracy Edwards. Then let's finish up looking at Charlie Dallin. You say it's very complicated and difficult for him. His patience really being tested, and this was Charlie's video.
Bon, compliqué cette nuit, hein. Pas beaucoup de vent. Le vent qui change de direction en permanence. Bon, le point positif, c'est que hier soir, j'ai vu mon premier albatros. Voilà. C'était signe que malgré tout ça, le sud approchait.
Et voilà ma trace sur le plan d'eau. Bon bah, on est d'accord, hein. J'ai réussi. Apivia. Voilà, j'ai réussi à écrire Apivia sur le plan d'eau cette nuit. Tellement c'est compliqué. Bon, là j'ai retrouvé un peu de vent. J'espère que cette fois c'est la bonne.
So complicated hours, as Charlie Dallin saying, writing the name of Apivia in his wake as he tries to break free of the St. Helena High. But that should happen for him. He should get down into the roaring 40s fairly soon. Join us tomorrow then for our Vendée Globe Live. Meantime, follow us on Facebook, on Twitter and indeed Instagram. If you have any questions at all about the race, about anyone in the race or any technical aspects, post them on our Facebook, Twitter or Instagram pages and join us tomorrow, same time and the same place.